Oh, hello. This is Dave Klein coming to you again. Today, we're going to talk a bit more about why should you consider a global training council or committee for your team. I thought it'd be great for us to start off by looking at the definition of a council compared to a committee. And a council and a committee serve different purposes and structures. And if we look at the definition I had about in this slide, it says a council is typically a larger body elected or appointed for governance or administration, while a committee is a smaller group designated for specific tasks or functions. Scope: councils often have broader responsibilities and authority, whereas committees focus on particular issues or projects. Membership: for council members are usually chosen to represent diverse perspectives, while committee members may be permanent or have fixed terms. Formality: councils tend to operate with more formal protocols compared to committees, which may have more flexible structures. So, as we get into this discussion, um, many times I've been asked, why have a training council to begin with? Some people I've talked to when I talk about forming a training council, and I'll give two reasons why we should do it. But they say, aren't you giving up some of that responsibility that you have in developing the training? You're giving that responsibility away for that decision making. And again, you're the director or the senior manager of this global team, and you're trying to make good courseware that's going to be acceptable across the world, right? So, why have a training council to begin with? Well, the first reason, if you're forming a brand new training team, and as if you've been looking at my channel here on YouTube, I speak directly about technical training or customer training on that equipment. And if you want to roll this training out to the globe, and let's say you're situated in North America, and that's where most of my teams were that were directly managed were in North America. One job at Motorola, I had teams all over the world. But what you want to do is make sure that you're not just looking at and developing training for the North America audience. And it's very easy to do without a global training team. And if most of your resources for training development are located in North America, but you're developing training for the globe, it, it would be very beneficial for your team to create a training council. And the training council is very important for that. They'll help you decide and determine prioritization of the training that's needed in their region. They'll help you develop the course material by identifying local subject matter experts in their region that should be part of reviewing that training material. And in many cases, if you're developing instructor led training, then you would want those people involved as that are trainers to review the training as you develop it. The second reason I would develop a training council um, is to, if you have a existing training program that's been getting bad reviews, and especially around the globe, or the training isn't being well accepted. You may have that acceptance not being that being accepted by the customer itself, or by the people delivering the training, maybe be unhappy with it. So you're getting that negative feedback, and you want to fix it. Well, I would consider implementing a global training council to help fix and refresh that training to make the training more acceptable by those regions. And by doing that training council, what I have found, the regions feel they have more say in the development of training. And I've seen it both ways, where you have a global training arm, but your development is centralized in North America. Or I've seen it where I managed an organization at Motorola. We were global, and we developed training around the globe. But a lot of the project management And some of the expertise was located in North America, but it was more acceptable because we were developing that training material in other places. So a training council, for me, those two things I just mentioned would be very appropriate for forming a training council. Well, the first important point we should look at is, are you a global or regional team? So if you're a global team, a training council makes sense. If you're a regional team, then you can probably have a regional training committee made up of people responsible for training in your region. And they should have a representative from that committee on the training council. So I'm not saying you should have one or the other, but it determines, are you a global or a regional team? Training council for global teams, and their difference is how to set up, right? If you're a global team, then you want to make sure you're getting representation from all the regions that you have in your company. Now, not every company is completely global. Some companies only sell, like let's say, in Europe, and they may sell in South America, but they may not be selling around the globe. Then who are going to be the members that you invite to this global training council? Well, they should be stakeholders of that training. So let me give you an example of that. When I was at my most recent job there at Shure Incorporated, um, we had many different regions that we were working with. And when I came on board, we had a course, and it was given to me and said, we have to globalize this course. And there were 6 different versions on this technology, on this technical product. And the reason behind that is, one thing, we didn't have a centralized development organization, and there was no group that was looking at how should we develop this training. So the regions were free to develop the training the way they wanted. But yet all the regions used the same name that we had created for the training delivery, and they were using that logo, but the courses were different. So the way I started was I formed this training council. We looked at these 6 versions. We took the best out of each version and created one course for the globe. Now that wasn't fixed immediately. In fact, I had 2 regional teams that decided that they were still going to use the course that they created, and we let them do that. But we expected them to use the final exam for this global course that we used. So you'd only have to have one exam to test the knowledge of the students taking that course. It took me about 12 to 18 months to bring around the entire globe, seeing the benefits of having this global training council and a training team that knows how to develop training using instructional designers. That's their job, but knowing they can develop the training, utilizing subject matter experts that know the product much better than we do. Now, your stakeholders should cover that spectrum on who needs to support the training. So you're going to be needing somebody, I would say, in that region that has responsibility for, touching the customer and making sure they're happy. And that could be a customer service team, that could be your sales team, could be a marketing team member from that region. But you want to make sure that you have somebody from that region that touches a customer almost on a daily basis. If you have an instructor on a region that does a lot of the regional training, you want to make sure that instructor is involved in reviewing the material. And then if you've got any what we call sales engineering guys or market development guys that might be technical, you want to make sure they're part of the team. Now you don't need to have one of each from each region, but you want to make sure you have somebody from each region that can sit up. Can identify who in the region you should be using for this course development. So if there's an instructor that's used to teaching that type of product in a region, they should be part of that course development. Maybe not every course development, but at least that course development for the area that they have expertise in. Now, a training council will take commitment from all members. What does that mean? Well, you're going to want to go and reach out to these people, and you want help in identifying who should be contacted in each region. And what I did is I reached out to the overall vice president for sales and marketing. I reached out to the vice president that had in charge of our customer service, and they gave me names to go reach out and content and have a conversation with. And that's what I did. I didn't go out blindly looking for people. I asked the experts who ran these teams on a global basis of who I should reach out to in each one of those areas. And just about everyone that I reached out to after I explained what I was doing and why had no issue belonging to this global training council. They were very happy to spend some time getting it right. So, again, this was on the initial setup of a training team that I put together, and it worked quite well. Now, one thing that I learned on very, very quickly is you want agenda items to go out in advance of the meeting. And what does that mean? Well, that means these agenda items should be out at least a few days. I always try to get it 3 days in advance of the meeting. I held my meetings at the beginning of each week. So they were Monday mornings, and people were just getting back. So I would make sure I sent that agenda item out on a Wednesday before. So they had 3 days before the meeting of that week before to read the agenda items. And I always allow people to bring other things to the meeting, and we could discuss for new business. But you want to make sure the agenda items that you have that you're going to talk about at that meeting is sent out early. We recorded all the meetings. Now, we didn't say that here, but we recorded all the meetings, and that made it easy for people who missed it could go and watch that. But we wanted to make sure that people had the idea of what we're going to be talking on. Training updates should be part of the meeting. So if we are developing content for a course, and we know that we have to have the course out by a particular date, and in both companies I worked at, Motorola and at Shure, we targeted the courses to be out by the product launch date. So when the product was being delivered to customers and was good for sales, that's when we had the courses out there. Now, if a technical course got delayed, we would have to have permission from the council here to delay that course. But we tried to make the course date be in that launch date for the product. And that's why training updates were very key here. Prioritization should be a responsibility of this group. So if there is a reason, or if you've got too much work on the team, this would be the development team, the team that's actually doing the training development, you want to make sure you bring that up. So this team, this global training council, can help out with that training prioritization. The video that I had about a recommended or suggested training structure, I'm swiping that slide from that video. If you want more information on this slide, you can go back and watch that complete video. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how this could look. So you're going to have the Global Training Council. Whoever is your director, manager, senior manager of that global training function, they would be the primary member, the global training lead. They would drive this meeting. They would be the one coming up with the agenda items, and they would be the one scheduling and hosting the meeting. So that would be that director, manager, global training function person. Then you would want representation from each one of the regions. Here I gave you the ones that I'm most familiar with from Motorola and from Shure. You got North America, you had Latin America, including the Caribbean, you had Europe, you had Middle East, Africa, and then you had Southeast Asia or just Asia. Some companies have divided these regions into more minute regions, but this is where you need that representation. Doesn't mean that you just have one representative from each area. What I found out working with this is in North America, I might have one or two people, probably two or three sometimes. Latin America, you may have one, maybe two. Europe, again, you could have up to two or three people. Middle East, Africa, maybe one or two. And Asia, again, one or two. And again, that's my experience from the companies I worked with. Depending how large the teams are in those different regions, depends about how many representatives you're going to have. The training councils that I'm familiar with, we end up having about, I would say, 8 or 9 members that aren't part of the training team. And then in these meetings, I would invite the rest of the training team to be part of this meeting. Why would I do that? Well, you would have those instructional designers and the managers of those instructional designers developing courseware, and we're giving training updates. So we would allow the instructional designer to give updates on where the course is or courses that they're working on and when their due dates are at. And they would also voice any issues they're having developing the course and where they're at taking care of those issues, and or if they needed any support by the Global Council to take care of some of those issues. And then you look at down here, you have your regional reps. So besides having the regions up there, the people who are just, like a sales manager or maybe a customer service rep from one of the regions or an instructor being part of the Global Council, you also have these regional reps. And these are the people that are really tied into your training team. I experienced both ways where they were actually a member of the training team or they were a volunteer member. And this is the thing that you would have to negotiate with their boss, where they're actually doing some work for the training team in those regions, and they're also part of that global training council. And it's very important that somebody in the region has this kind of responsibility. And let's go over to this next slide, and it's called the vertical market lead. So in the regions, you're going to have different markets, both at Motorola and at Shure. We experience different market segments. So you're going to have some sort of product that you're creating for that market segment, and it may be identical or different than another market segment gets for that product. So a vertical market lead allows you to dig into that market a bit more detail to find out what is needed for that training. So the vertical marketing lead will identify what product launches and marketing campaigns that need global training commitment for that training product. They will show their needs on a monthly basis at the vertical lead meeting. That was held on the first Friday of each month for the team I managed. You guys can work that out. What works for you? The key responsibilities includes needs analysis. For me to get vertical leads understand what a needs analysis was, I actually ran them through a small course for the vertical market lead. It was just going what needs analysis is, any administration that they may have to do. Now, one of the things we asked them to do is take care of the learning management system for their region. And that really helped out with our LMS administrator because they could actually set up local training courses that are being handled by an instructor. And then they would make sure that the test was set up for that course via the LMS. So again, they did some of that administrative work. Um, and the execution of training strategies. So if we're trying to do something from a training team and get it out to the regions, for example, we had several different certification programs that we created. Well, to get the support from the regions, we really relied on the vertical marketing lead working with us to explain what that would be and how that would affect the region for this certification program. So they really need to help you get the word out and work with the regions. They also are part of the review of each course. So, in other words, any course going out to their region that they have this vertical market lead responsibility, They reviewed each one of the courses and they would give their feedback. They also helped us identify key people in the area, like an instructor who would be teaching this course, or a key person that works with the customer on a daily basis, like a customer service guy or a salesperson, that may have not been so supportive of your training team. We really rely on this vertical market lead to work with them and to get them to review some of our courses, or at least attend the Global Training Council meeting and get used to who we are and what we do. So we get more of their support in that region instead of negative support. Now, if you're curious about what the training council was in more detailed responsibilities and how that should work, again, if you go review that suggested training structure, that the video I put together, you'll see a detailed explanation of this global training council and its responsibilities. And again, it's just good to have, and I have to recommend it. It's something that worked for me in all the jobs I had, and I really recommend that you take care of this and do this going forward. And if you have any questions, like always, reach out to me via my YouTube channel. Get a hold of me, and I'll answer those questions for you. Again, um, if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd appreciate that. And thanks for watching.